Hey, thank you so much for inviting me on. I don't have the title Honourable, so I'll just clear that out before anyone gets confused. It's a great topic this morning because it really is, what is security? It's being free from danger or threat. And for me, that issue of freedom is the big issue, because what I see happening in traditional and non-traditional threats is actually threats to freedom. And so I'm going to concentrate on one area today, and that is really around the area of governance. And for me, the threat to freedom really comes from excessive size of government, and that's in multiple fronts. So when we have an oversized government, it wants to control everything all the people do. And in that control, people lose their freedom. But what it means is too few people are making the decisions for the whole, and no one is guaranteed to have all the wisdom and all the knowledge. And the threats then become we take advantage of people's human rights, or we reduce people's human rights because we say it's for the greater good. But that is based on one or two people's views of what is the greater good. So that is definitely a threat to security and freedom, is oversized government. And the problem with oversized government is it's people thinking that the best way to govern is a top-down dictatorial system. And I don't actually believe that works, because it requires more and more control. And what we see on the horizon coming up for the world is more control. So whether that's through a central digital currency where we do away with cash and the trade of goods and services is all monitored and controlled by central banks, that is control over people, and it limits people's freedom. Or whether it's a social credit score, which we see in China coming in, where people's attitudes or what they comment on, how they interact, is then seen as being good or bad by the government. So again, a few people determining whether your actions are actually good or bad, and then they limit your access to freedom and to assets because of their opinion on what you're doing. We have the World Health Organization wanting to have sole jurisdiction on declaring what is a pandemic, and then dictating to sovereign states how they should address that pandemic. Again, that's control. Their role really is to come up with suggestions or ideas on how individual states can address a pandemic, coordinate the information available, but definitely not being able to dictate how nations should respond to a pandemic. So again, it's extra control by a few group of people. And to me, that is a major threat to security and to freedom. So the question then becomes, what is the solution or solutions to these threats? And I believe it's reducing the size of central government. When you have an overly big central government, there's too much of your tax take is being used in actually just governance, instead of being on frontline services like health or infrastructure, education, etc. An oversized government brings more and more regulations, so therefore individuals spend more time and energy and funds in compliance rather than their core business, whatever that may be. And central government reduces choice of people and treats all people in all areas of their country or their nation as the same. So an example for New Zealand, we have an issue at the moment where the government have been trying to bring in new laws around our fresh water, basically called the Three Waters legislation, where the government will dictate what happens in all areas in regards to your water. That takes away local areas' decision-making about how they treat fresh water and also the disposal of their grey water and black water. So things like that don't actually work because all areas are different. And what we need to see is a change from a top-down dictatorial controlling structure to a bottom-up supportive structure. Government's role should not be to dictate to the individuals what and how they should do things. Government's role should really be providing an environment where all individuals can reach their potential. Certainly the government has a role in security, but that is part of helping people reach their potential. And absolutely the government has a role in international relations and diplomacy, trying to avoid escalation and conflicts. But again, is allowing people to reach their full potential in their nation. And as long as we have a people whose desire is to control and dictate what happens to others, we're going to continue to see significant threats to freedom and therefore also security. So for me, I'm slightly encouraged by the fact that New Zealand is going to move into a three-party government where at least there will be more debate and discussion over policies rather than just forced on the people by a majority government. I would like to see the vision of a government in New Zealand change from dictating to the people to actually understanding what the people want and allowing them the freedom to choose. So, look, I thank you for allowing me to join today. I know there are multiple threats to the security for all nations, whether that be the conflict we see in the Middle East at the moment, whether we see Iran's access to enriched plutonium, whether we see China's influence in the South Pacific. Those are major international threats to security. But we actually need to look close to home as well, because if we lose our freedoms, then what do we actually have? And a caged chicken is actually really safe, but it has no freedom. And I think preserving the freedom of the individuals within the nation is as vitally important as international relations. So thank you for your time this morning.